the problem, and what's the point of this story? What happens if you apply Sravanam and not Mananam? So, there is a man who is afraid of birds. Do you know why? He thinks he's a worm. Okay? So, he doesn't want to go out. And he needs help. So he goes to a therapist. Obviously, he goes, out of his house, straight into the car, straight into the hospital. No exposure to the outside because he's afraid the bird is going to eat him because the birds eat worms, right? And he thinks he's a worm. So he goes to the therapist and says, "Hey, Mr. Therapist, I need help. I'm a worm." And the therapist says, "No, you're not." "No, I am a worm." So then obviously the therapist now, thinks, how do I solve this problem? So the therapist applies some Sravanam knowledge. And what is the Sravanam knowledge in this situation? The therapist says, he puts a worm on the plate and goes, "This is worm. Do you look like this?" And then the man says, "Absolutely not." So then where's the relation between you and the worm? Well, you got a good point, therapist. I never thought about it that way, right? So now the man is like, he's got a good point. I don't share any features of the worm. I can talk, the worm cannot talk. So it's pretty clear that my nature is not what I thought it was. My nature is not a worm. My nature is a human being. So the therapist asks, "So what's your nature, sir?" "Based on seeing this evidence, I am a human being. My true nature is a human being." So the therapist is super happy to hear this. And then the therapist discharges the man out. As soon as the doors of the hospital open, you know how in front of the hospital there's always nice palm trees and parks you can hang out? So obviously the man sees a bird, so he turns back. It goes back to the therapist and says, the therapist, "And what are you doing here?" "There's a bird on the tree." "What's the problem? I thought you were a human being." And then the man says, "Sir, I know my true nature is a human being, but the worm in me doesn't know that. You haven't treated the worm in me. Similarly, even though we can get the nature of the self and we can be very convinced about it, there is something inside us, a Mr. or Mrs. Worm, that it still is not convinced. And until we convince that little worm that the nature of the self is limitless Ananda, we will walk around in this world like little small, insignificant worms who make no difference." So, what is the worm a metaphor for? A doubt. How do you remove doubts? Raising and answering questions based on the worms which you have written down on your little paper or phone until every single worm is extinguished. And only you alone can do this. This also means that it doesn't matter how good the knowledge is, provided or imparted by somebody else. All that matters is it a living reality for you? If it's not a living reality, then it is as good as useless. So this means your job is to constantly address the doubts in relation to what? In relation to the unconscious patterns which are constantly singing how I'm insecure, small, worthless, I'm not good enough, I don't matter, I'm a nobody, everyone's better than I am, I make no difference, I don't have any energy, I'm too old, I'm too small, I'm too young. It's just endless. These doubts have to be written down, and then you need to what? Apply Vedanta knowledge onto them until the worm is destroyed. Similarly, if a person, a jnani, knows one's true nature as the self, immortal, limitless, Ananda, then what happens? Despite an ajnani coming over and saying, you're just a small little worm, you're mortal, you're small, you're unenlightened, you need to go and learn, does that make any difference to the jnani? Absolutely not. Why? Because the jnani has solved the problem. And thus, only the jnani knows what the jnani knows. Nobody else knows what the jnani knows. For that reason, we cannot say, and we don't have the right to judge other people, because we don't know what they know or don't know. All that matters is, have you understood? Right? Does this make a difference in your life? Is this transforming your life? That's all that matters at the end of the day.